Welcome to another session. Why do you call it another session? Another episode of Blessings Astrology. So you can see same place, same room as I usually do. Some of my posts. Sometimes I do outside, as you can probably already see. But today we're going to talk about Mercury. So Mercury, as you can probably see, I kind of found it, and I'm kind of lazy about it too. But Mercury is about communication. Mercury is about all this stuff that is. It's just like this flow of this way. It's the energy. It's of course it's. I would say it's in the essence of everything. So when we're talking about how you understand something, perception, um, it's not only the mind, it's a form of communication between from here to here, point A to point B or backwards, or backwards. And with Mercury, there's a sense of um, a certain skill set that requires, it's really communication, right? It's, when you communicate, what is communication? You give information. It's really about information, providing information, getting information, all those things. So I thought I'd kind of go through the signs kind of like in a very sort of Mercurian way. This way, this is technology is still part of Mercury. More like simple technology like this one. So through the signs, we have Mercury in, as you can see here, Aries, which is aggression, assertiveness, quick to respond. Maybe there's a certain defensiveness to it, but definitely a lot of curiosity with things. Like, it's very quick-witted. It's similar to, actually, I would say Gemini is more quick-witted in this case. But with Aries there, it's more about that burst of energy that is just like usually about honesty, bluntness, and just like, right? It's Mars ruled, so therefore it is, a lot of it is initiative. So person has Mercury in Aries usually talk quite easily with a sort of, I guess, a burst of energy, and not maybe, yeah, what is that? Gets easily angry. There's another I was thinking. So anyway, so what now we're doing is Mercury, right? And so it's this sort of this energy of like, I know what to say. Sometimes because of the energy that it pours out, it kind of dies out as well eventually. But it definitely a lot of initiative. So Mercury in Aries people, especially if it's like Sun, Mercury, self-expression is easy. And not always about details, of course. It's not about detail. It's about not precision or not even, exact. It's more about expression of will. It's expression of desire. It's expression of, no, this isn't fun for me. Oh no, this isn't exciting. Oh, this isn't new for me. They won't most likely. They most likely won't actually express themselves that way. Mercury in Taurus is very observant, I would say, slow to process things, but that doesn't mean they're stupid. It just means that they look at things more from, when it comes to communication, it is about what makes sense on a very earthly level. Right? Is it also pleasurable? Is it something? And when I say pleasure, I mean like, is it sort of, is there a purpose behind it so that I can get feelings from it through like tactile sort of feel? Like, is the communication process more inwards, right? Not emotional inwards, more like body. Definitely physical, definitely the body for sure. And it is also similar to Aries. It's very much it's sexual rather than sensual, whereas Taurus is more about sensuality. So it's all about it's Venus ruled, right? So it's like, is it easygoing? Is the conversation kind of like, does it feel a little bit more natural, relaxing, soothing kind of thing? That's very Taurus communication. They don't like bursts of energy, unlike Aries. They don't like that kind of hurried energy like Gemini, right? They're not quick-witted, and that's okay. They don't care. They just like, they don't get it, they don't get it. People who have this placement, especially if they, let's say, have some sort of aspect, like it's especially depending on the house, um, they might like jobs that are more hands-on, like with earth, planting, anything to do with easy music as well. To communicate well through music, an expression of the self, expression of it is the self because it's still the second house, right? It's the second house stuff. It's Taurus, right? So a lot of it is it has to feel slow, natural, earthy. Of course, and Mercury and Gemini. Now we're talking about quick-wittedness, very much like they see things like this way, and they see things through detail because it goes here, 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 here. It's not per se that it's actually detail oriented in terms of like every single thing, but on a surface level, Mercury and Gemini people have this ability to be funny about the way they say things. These are probably placements of comedians. They know what to say, exactly when to say it. It's there's a certain intuition to air. It's not deep intuition, like not emotional. It's more like intellectual intuition. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. And there's a certain like sort of a game play going on there between communication, how Mercury people do things. So for those people who don't find that sometimes talking too much is a pain, because sometimes I feel like that. It's the gifts behind Mercury is to be able to connect, right? So communication doesn't just happen with the sounds and what you say. Communication happens between inner self, like your higher self. That's a communication, right? And sometimes communication doesn't have to be, again, like this, right? It doesn't have to be through the physical body. It doesn't have to be through matter. It can be, right? So communication comes in many forms. Mercury in Cancer is very much like they have good memory. They're quite like Taurus as well. They're kind of observant. They're kind of also reserved in the way they reveal things. Because this is water, it's usually hidden. It's, if you're talking about Cancer in the fourth house, specifically the fourth house, it's about things that you keep secret. So Mercury in Cancer will not reveal things unless they feel like connection with you in a very sort of family sort of oriented. They feel a sense, and they can sort of sense. They're very intuitive that way. It's a kind of an earthly intuition, but water. So it's like, the shell will not open. It's kind of stubborn that way, just like Taurus, where it's like there's a shell around it, right? But definitely good memory because it keeps things in, absorbs things, and then remembers it. Right? People like this are very also, shrewd. There's a certain shrewdness to communication. So maybe it's a little slow, but once the timing is right, and maybe expression isn't necessarily about quick-wittedness, it's about staying your ground. In a way, there's this stubbornness, of course, to Cancer. Right? So Mercury in Leo, it's all about the pride. It's like the Aries sort of thing, but it's like it's fire. It's about, am I communicating where it's fun? Am I communicating where it's very simple but childlike? Is it more about, is it intuitively beautiful? Is it something like, when you express yourself through music, it's an expression through music is like, this is what I'm saying, I want you to read it. Would you like to come along? They're very, Mercury Leo people communicate in a very, they like to be on par with people, but it's more about, let me shine so that I can give you what I feel you need, because I know it. I know what I need. I know what needs to kind of happen. I feel like a sense of, it's shining. It's like there's an innocence to the communication. They don't really they Mercury and Leo people don't like negativity. I've met people like that, and it's just they don't like negativity. They don't like that sort of like bringing down, like really darkening things. It's kind of pretty much the opposite of Scorpio, which is like, I don't like that, right? They like to communicate in a very childlike way, sort of fun, having pride, having a good kind of pride. It's like, just like, it's like almost like Gemini as well. There's a certain trait, right? There's a sort of a game thing, but it's not about the games. It's about enjoying communication. We'll still take our time, but let's not argue over who's right and who's wrong. Although, most likely, I think I'm right. But of course, that's the Mercury Sun sort of placement. If it's in Leo, so Mercury and Leo love to be expressive with themselves. It's very connected to the Sun because it is ruled. So that means that self-expression is more automatic, probably even more than the other signs. Self-expression, identity is definitely tied to that. And once pride is affected, though, Mercury in this case will sort of like close in, not really close in, more like just go away for a second and be like, huh, no, no, I'm not ready to come back yet. No. Right, they're in that case, that makes it a stubborn sort of fire. Mercury in Virgo is like Gemini. It's like Gemini, except it's very much the detail-oriented sort of placement. It goes into perfection. It goes into what needs to really happen, but still practically detailed. It's not just like here, information here, but can I use that information? Can I learn from that? Can I manifest something from it? Can I make it sort of like practical? Can I make it sort of connected to an earthly sort of thing? Right? Being ruled by both Mercury and obviously also Chiron and Vesta, again, there's that sort of sacredness to it. Mercury and Virgo people don't necessarily speak when they don't have to. They need to be able to say something based on what they see, and then they say, okay, that feels like it's wrong. People like this tend to correct easily. They're the correctors of that kind of placement. If they feel like they need to correct you, Mercury and Virgo people will do that. When I say correction, I mean it's not because that they're right or you're right, but there is a tiny tidbit, there's a tiny bit of influence from Leo, because again, remember, as the signs progress through the zodiac, right? It's basically, this way, it carries from its previous signs. So most likely the closest one is Leo. So it has that bit of that pride in there. When I say pride, I don't mean like I'm proud. I'm a sort of like, I think this is right. It's that ego, right? So it carries over to Virgo as well. Especially when it comes to anything practically, like something that is very not just practical, but I guess you could say pragmatism. There's a certain pragmatism to Virgo in this placement. So the way they communicate is like, as long as I'm able to communicate what I need to communicate in detail and it's useful, great. But it's also about procedure. It's like Virgo people, like specifically if it's Sun, they enjoy procedure. They enjoy correctness. Sort of like Capricorn, pretty much. So not as much, but it's still flexible because it is under a mutable sign.